According to research, what kind of personality traits will help you get rich and why? I'm going to talk to you about 2 different studies that looked into this. The first one looked at which personality traits predict wealth, and the second one compared really rich people with middle class people in terms of certain psychological characteristics. Study number 1. This study involved just over 3,000 participants from the UK. These were adults who were asked to complete a personality test, and they were also asked about 3 different measures of wealth: property wealth, savings and investments, and physical valuable items, such as a car, artwork, and jewelry. The researchers were mostly interested in which personality traits appear to be the most predictive of wealth. What were the personality traits? They looked specifically at the Big 5 personality traits. This is otherwise known as OCEAN: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Let's just go through them quickly. Openness. High openness involves being curious and interested in new experiences, while low openness typically means a preference for practicality and routine. Conscientiousness. High conscientiousness is linked to goal-oriented behavior and self-discipline, while low conscientiousness involves impulsivity and carelessness. Extroversion. High extroversion is associated with outgoing and energetic behavior, while low extroversion, in other words introversion, means being reserved and reflective. Agreeableness. High agreeableness reflects kindness and empathy, while low agreeableness tends to involve being competitive and critical. And finally, neuroticism. A high neuroticism is associated with stress and anxiety, while low neuroticism indicates emotional stability and calmness. So what did the findings reveal? Basically that conscientiousness is clearly the most important personality trait when it comes to predicting wealth. Okay, so what do these findings suggest exactly? Well, if you want to be rich and successful, basically try to be more conscientious. Think along the lines of goal setting, self-discipline, hard work, careful planning, being organized, and being diligent when it comes to completing tasks. Study number 2. This study basically compared mass affluent individuals with wealthy individuals. Or, in other words, it compared middle class people with really rich people. Wealthy individuals, the really rich people, were defined as those who had a yearly income of $370K or more, and or $2.5 million at least in net worth. In other words, this meant that with these really rich people, at the time of the study, they were ranked in the top 5% of Americans in terms of wealth. The comparison group in the study, as I said, basically the middle class people, had an average yearly income of $70K and an average net worth of about $500K. Now, as discussed by the researchers, the rich have a pretty bad reputation for being greedy and corrupt. Is this really true? And in what ways were the really rich people in the study different to the middle class people in terms of certain psychological characteristics? Well, first of all, when the participants were asked to what extent they are against paying taxes, which was how the researchers measured greed, it was found that there was actually no difference between the 2 groups. And in fact, both groups showed a fairly low score for tax aversion. Second of all, unfortunately for us not so rich people, although perhaps not surprisingly, the rich people showed a significantly higher score for life satisfaction. In terms of what motivated them to be wealthy, it was found that the really rich people had a significantly higher score for being motivated by passion. And they also had a significantly higher score for being motivated by wealth. But in my opinion, here is where it gets really interesting. The rich people had a significantly lower score for what's referred to as locus of control. Locus of control is basically a person's belief about how much control they have over their own lives. A lower score for this indicates an internal locus of control, meaning that you feel like your successes and your failures can be controlled by your actions, efforts, and decisions. A higher score, though, indicates an external locus of control, which is basically when you feel like, Whether you succeed or fail, it really just comes down to external factors, such as luck or other people's actions. So to put it simply, the really rich people in the study were more likely to feel that they can control their own outcomes. Now, it is possible that being really rich can give you an internal locus of control. In other words, having lots of money makes it easier for you to feel like you're in control of your life and your destiny. But it also makes sense that having an internal locus of control would make a huge difference if you are wanting to become successful. Why? Because individuals with an internal locus of control are more likely to set personal goals, be proactive and persistent, and to continuously reflect on their own behavior for self-improvement. Whereas people with an external locus of control are more likely to feel powerless about controlling their own outcomes. And therefore they tend to be more passive, to blame their failures on things they can't control, such as someone else having an unfair advantage over them. And when looking at other people's success, rather than feeling inspired, they're more likely to think of that person as just being lucky. To sum it all up, according to the research, if you want to be rich and successful, take charge of your own life. Set goals, be proactive, and self-reflect on how you can improve. Don't sit around waiting to get lucky. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.